how's it going today, everyone? So, as you can tell, we're having some beautiful weather again. We've really lucked out, actually. Yesterday we had some really big thunderstorms come through. And they were, in some areas, they got a little bit violent, but nothing too extreme, just heavy rains and a fair bit of lightning and thunder. As you can see behind me, we're in for more of it. So, I came out to try and get a few photos of the storms rolling in, and I just happened to see this as I was driving across, and I thought it was kind of nice. So what I'd done, I'll bring you with me. So what I've done, camera's nice and low, and the reason why, I'm going to talk about that real quick. A photographer I found on the internet, I believe it was Mark Denny. He talked about this technique for landscape photography. Basically, his suggestion that he had was when you are photographing something, you find your subject and you get low. And I'm trying to take that to heart. It's kind of how I work anyway. But in this case, a lot of people give dandelions a lot of flack. People hate them. They think they're weeds. They hate them in their lawns. Oh my goodness, they hate them in their lawns. But what some people don't realize is that dandelions are the first food for the bees in the spring. And our bee populations here in North America are not doing very well as it is. So, try and help the bees out a little bit. But anyway, so they're actually quite a pretty flower. So what I've been doing in my composition here, and it's going to be really hard to see it on the screen. Yeah, it's really hard to see on the screen. I apologize, but you'll see it in a few minutes. So what I've done, I've tried a couple things. I've tried a really shallow depth of field, a 2.8 exposure focused on the flowers. And I'm actually going to try a 2.8 exposure focused at infinity as well, just because it is a rather interesting look. It's an interesting look, because then you have the flowers out of focus with your infinity as the subject. So it makes for an interesting foreground and background interest. But to get back on topic, I got down low with the dandelions out in front of me. So I got down low. I've got my dandelions as my primary subject. I've got a secondary, towards the edge of the frame, I've got a secondary clump of dandelions as my sort of almost a lead-in. The flower clumps make a bit of a lead-in that angles in towards the barn. And then we have those big dramatic clouds up above. And I've got the polarizer on as well. I've got my Nissi polarizer on, and it's a gorgeous polarizing filter. It works really well for this stuff. Really brings the colors out, and it really increases the contrast. So I've got that on there. And what I did, I don't normally do this. The first thing I tried was f16. I don't normally like to go as far as f16 because you start to run into diffraction and you start to lose a little bit of your image sharpness. But I pulled it back to f11, and I'm going to try some focus stacking. So with focus stacking, the way I've learned it is that you focus at your closest subject, and then you focus somewhere in the midpoint, and then you focus again at infinity. And with f11, I have a lot of depth of field anyway, especially I'm working at 35 millimeters, so I have a decent amount of depth of field. But I've done that, and so when I go into Photoshop later, I can sort of do gradient, almost a gradient mask with my masking tool, and paint in the areas that I want in focus, and so I can achieve pin sharp focus from foreground to infinity, get that nice detailed shot. So that's what I've been working on here. I've got about an hour of sunlight left before sunset. So I'm watching this storm come across to the south here, and the colors are really starting to build up on it. And there are other storm systems. There are some storm systems further to the west as well, but they're not going to be here before sunset. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on south and try and get another angle, a different composition on this storm as it forms here. So I'm going to tear down, I'm going to move on, and we're going to see what else I can find. But this considering I wasn't sure what I was going to get tonight, this is a nice first composition. I'm actually quite happy with it. So, we're going to get back in the car and we're going to carry on. Well, some would probably describe me as almost lazy on this one. Went so far as I'm staying in the car. So basically what's going on is I've still got that building storm over here on my side. I was originally going to try and use, there's a big farming feed and fuel depot here just below Elmvale. And I was originally going to try and use it as a subject. But then as I got kind of close to it, I realized, it doesn't actually work as a subject. So what I did is I stopped, and there's this one lone tree in the middle of the field. I was able to stop so that it blocked out the view of the silo that was standing behind it. So the tree becomes my subject, with the clouds in the background become sort of my backdrop. And I'm actually really happy with this as a subject. It works really well. Sitting at just shy of 60 millimeters. I've tried 2.8. I am going to also, of course, stop down a little bit. Handheld, as I said, I'm literally sitting in the car and it's working quite well. The colors are beautiful. Focusing on the tree is close enough to infinity that it's not really bothering my depth of field all that much. Stop down, F8. Bit of a burst. And composing just a tiny bit of the ground in the subject to ground the photograph. And that's actually quite nice. I may widen it just a titch. My only reason being that everything is moving. I mean, as you know, nothing ever stops. An object in motion tends to stay in motion until acted upon by an outside force, and the storm is moving eastward. So, I'm keeping it just a hair overexposed here, just to keep more detail in the shadow regions on the ground. Yeah, there we go. That's quite nice. Okay. That, I think, is just about it for today. I had a bad headache earlier, so I'm not going to push it too much. Just a combination of trying to get used to the heat again. It was very warm, so getting used to having the high humidity again is a little bit challenging. So we're gonna probably wrap it up there. There's not really too much else going on this week. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do much photography this week. My time's going to get a little bit more limited going forward here. Things are going to pick up for me. I'm going to be quite busy going forward, but it's nice to get out and do some photography tonight. Anyway, so I'm going to carry on here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. It's very short. It's very to the point. Really this week, next week, I'm going to try and with the active weather focus, no pun intended, on storm and weather photography and sort of capturing the elements, as it were. So that's my focus right now. That's what I'm going to work on. So I'm going to keep going here. But if this is where I wrap up, then I hope that you all had a great week. Have a great weekend. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week, everyone. Catch you soon.